5 is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting norml.org, Norml.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Norml Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of Norml. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Norml Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Norml's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Wednesday, March 7th, 2012, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us here, which is going to be my last show of the week before I head out to Houston, Texas to debate drug warrior Dr. Kevin Sabet. So we'll try to bring that to you on Friday, but just a reminder, no live show tomorrow or on Friday. Also joining us here in the studio, we got Wiz Khalico sitting there on the end. How you doing, Wiz Khalico?
Good, man. Glad to be back. Hello, everybody.
Glad to have you. Oh, there, and then there's Brian. Brian's in studio as well. Brian Red, how you doing, Brian?
I'm here, you know.
That's all he will commit to. Also joining us from our virtual studio in beautiful Grass Storia is the lovely senior news editor, Cannabis Carrie.
Hi. So nice to see Brian in studio.
Yeah, good to have more and more people here. And we might be having Brian do some engineering on the shows while I'm gone. So we're going to work that out after the show. Carrie brings us our hemp headlines right here after the first break. So what do you got in the news today?
Well, today we're going to go to Connecticut, where they heard some testimony on a medical marijuana legislation bill today. We're also going to do some international cannabis news. It's sort of like a Friday here on a Wednesday. We're going to go to Israel and look at their marijuana issues there. Also, a second story this week, a grow house and explosives. I'm going to tell you all about that. And since it's Health Wednesday, we're also going to talk about that study that came out that said blocking marijuana, an endocannabinoid in your brain, might lead to weight loss.
All right, we'll take a look at that. Plus, we've got an announcement from our executive director on the early bird discounts now available for the Norml National Conference in October. I'll tell you about that at the end of the headlines. Also joining us on today's show, NorCal Perps will be calling in, bringing us some Irie Wednesday music, so check that out at 20 after. At 5:30, we speak with Dr. Mitch Earlywine, one of America's leading researchers on marijuana and the people that use it, and you can call in live at 971-533-7111 to get your question answered, or bring it to our chat room at ustream.tv, live.norml.org otherwise, and you can get in via chat if you like. Then at the end of the show, a little time for my radical rant, paging Dr. Sabet to the green courtesy phone. It's Norml Show Live. We're back after this.
You're listening to Norml Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hi, I'm Radical Russ. One of the best things about marijuana is the wonderful aroma. But when you travel a lot like I do, that aroma becomes a suspicious smell. That's why I endorse stealth-products.com, the leaders in smell-proof containers. From smell-proof vacuum bags to smell-proof backpacks and duffel bags, all the way to smell-proof digital safes, stealth-products.com has you covered. Stealth-products.com brings you safe, secure, odorless layers of protection with activated carbon fiber. Backpacks and duffel bags are simple black so as not to attract attention with a logo or a flashy design. Now, nothing is perfectly odor controlled from the detection of drug dogs, but with proper vigilance, containers from stealth-products.com will help you avoid nosy humans.
You're now listening to Elliot Beats.
Stealth-products.com. Stealth-products.com.
Hey, this is Sub Cool from Team Green Avenger Seeds, TGAgenetics.com, and you're listening to the Norml Network.
Okay, let's see. Toke as needed. Caution, objects may...
Weedmaps.com. I'm Radical Russ from Norml. In my job as outreach coordinator, I travel every month, and when I'm on the road, I need a fast, accurate way to find the medical marijuana dispensaries in the area. So I turn to Weedmaps.com. Weedmaps.com has the best dispensary locator online or on your mobile device. Search by zip code or let Weedmaps find you, and in seconds you'll have the addresses, phone numbers, and customer service reviews for the medical marijuana dispensaries in the local area. Weedmaps.com also has a section devoted to helping you find a doctor who understands and recommends medical marijuana under your state's law. You can even check prices on the Medical Marijuana Stock Exchange. Coming soon, you'll even be able to find the listings of Norml attorneys and chapters, local head shops and grow shops, and the best weed-friendly businesses. Weedmaps.com has the information you need to be an informed cannabis consumer. Visit Weedmaps.com today, a proud sponsor of the Norml Network.
Inhaling deeply of the sacred smoke.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's Norml News with Cannabis Carrie.
A medical marijuana law in Connecticut got a scheduled hearing today before the General Assembly's Judiciary Committee. The bill proposes a medical marijuana provision in the state law that it would allow qualified patients to use cannabis. It also spells out a dispensing system that they say addresses many of the concerns about a medical marijuana program in Connecticut that have been brought up over past attempts at passing a medical marijuana law. Last year, the Connecticut House of Representatives, in a last-minute effort, amended a medical marijuana bill to include the addition of a task force to try to salvage that medical marijuana bill, but the Senate, however, failed to take up the issue. This year, Eric Williams, the director of Connecticut's Norml chapter, said that the latest bill is the best that they have had to offer the legislature and that the licensing of medical marijuana producers in Connecticut should get it helped to pass. Williams spoke at a news conference this morning before the hearing. Patients that used cannabis spoke at the hearing to try and get the committee to vote for this particular medical marijuana measure. Mark Krause, the chairman of the Connecticut State Medical Society, says that he wants more data on the medical effects of marijuana and chronic diseases. And State Senator Tony Boucher, the Republican from Wilton, Connecticut, who has made the hemplines in the past, said that she is just not satisfied with the bill as written, and she would like the medical marijuana proponents to come up with a more detailed explanation of how the system would work. She added that it would send the wrong message to children and said that she hears from parents who have lost their children to drug abuse and opposes any medical marijuana legislation, saying that always leads to harder drugs. But she said that they are reluctant to tell their stories at the General Assembly. These parents, of course, they didn't testify today, and said that forces at work really want this legislation passed. Boucher said she might be persuaded to vote in favor of a medical marijuana bill in Connecticut if they would restrict it to terminally ill patients only. How mean.
Yeah, and for this legislator who says we just need to see more studies, need to see more science, need to see more on the medical efficacy. 5,000 years of human history, just not quite enough. Need a little bit more study. All right, and by the way, big kudos to Eric Williams and Connecticut Norml shepherding and fighting for a medical marijuana initiative in Connecticut. Because Norml hates patients or something. I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to give you a quote here from the story that was in the Connecticut News Junkie. And this is from Eric, working there in Connecticut, who said, quote, "What we have here is a far cry from California. It's an industry that has very, very little oversight or regulation, and that is not what we want to have in the state of Connecticut. We've learned what not to do, and that's generally California." End quote. And that's the mantra that every East Coast reformer has to repeat whenever they're fighting for a medical marijuana law, is that it's not California. And it's not that I have anything against California's Prop 215. I mean, sure, of course a doctor should be able to recommend marijuana for any condition they believe it'll help. Of course, I think having a doctor in there is unnecessary in the first place. But to the general public, California represents this Wild West free-for-all in pot with naughty nurses and shady doctors in tents on the beach with bikini girls spinning $45 recommendation signs and pot shops with neon pot leaves on every corner and expos where medical products are hawked by car show models and neighborhood backyards with pot plantations and stoners hiding behind a medical excuse so they can sell weed out of state for a living. That's the perception. I'm not saying it's the reality. That's the perception back east. Now, had California passed Prop 19 in 2010, that attack would not resonate. Reformers could redirect public attention to Colorado, where the state has embraced a commercial licensing system, or to New Mexico or to Rhode Island, where the states have taken different approaches with state-run dispensaries. With California off the table, the discussion moves from how do we not be like California to how do we emulate what the other medical marijuana states have done. This is just one reason why it's crucially important for medical marijuana supporters to work for full legalization. California's wink, wink, nudge, nudge medical system is seen by many people as quasi-legalization. And to the casual observer, it paints all medical marijuana as some sort of scheme by potheads to legalize by other means. With medical marijuana tarred by that brush, every attempt to pass a new medical marijuana law must work overtime to beat back California. Thus, we get the last 4 medical marijuana states creating laws with no home grow, as Connecticut is attempting here. And onerous security requirements and tiny possession amounts and more restrictive condition lists and stricter doctor-patient relationships and so on. And during the Prop 19 campaign, so many of the patients and dispensary and clinic owners who were against it, they told me, well, we just can't pass any old legalization. They were recalcitrant over the 5x5 gardens being too small, and the conspiracy theory that Oakland was going to be the only place you could buy weed, monopolized by a greedy bastard who sunk $1.5 million of his own money on a losing bet. And they all told me, we can always pass a real legalization on the next ballot. In the 2 years since, they've faced increased federal raids, and all the states that have passed medical marijuana have denied home grow. Also, it doesn't appear that any legalization, much less real legalization, is going to make it on the ballot in 2012 in California. The next presidential year opportunity is 2016. If legalization should fail in 2 more medical marijuana states in 2012, you can bet the next 4 years are not going to be pretty for any marijuana reformers. So remember, your vote on legalization could very well doom the next chance for the next group that tries to put together a medical marijuana law for patients in another state to get any sort of protection from arrest. Legalization votes are not merely an issue for your state. They are an issue of global importance. Until one state legalizes, the feds never stop prohibition, the drug dealers never stop supplying us, and another 10,000 Mexicans are slaughtered over that trafficking.
Second story this week. It comes to us today from the HuffPost. Earlier this week, we reported on a marijuana grow-op that was busted in the Seattle area, where they found about 100 plants and some military-grade weapons and some plastic explosives. Well, here's another baffling story, this time from the opposite side of the country in Woodmere, Long Island, New York. Police discovered a marijuana grow house that also had an arsenal of guns, pipe bombs, grenades, and what they are now saying was enough explosives to level the entire block where it was found. Officers were tipped off early yesterday morning investigating a silent alarm in Long Island, and police arrested 53-year-old Mark Ringel on drug and weapons charges after police found him working on a van in his driveway. When the officers asked him for ID, he went to the front door of his home to retrieve it. Officers said as soon as he opened the door, they could smell the strong odor of marijuana coming from his home, and one officer immediately reported seeing a weapon on his floor. They took him into custody, and after seeing a stash of guns, they ordered the neighborhood of about 20 homes to be evacuated for several hours while they obtained a search warrant. They believe the man is unemployed and lived at the home with his elderly parents, who also have a winter home in Florida. Local police called in the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, who remained on the scene today searching for more evidence. Now, we're not sure how much marijuana was in the home. They had not removed the marijuana as of this afternoon from what they are calling a significant grow house of marijuana, because they fear that the garden part of the home is booby-trapped. They found in the home, though, about 50 pounds of ingredients for making explosives, including ammonium nitrate, fuel oil, peroxide, sodium nitrate, and citric acid. They also found about 100 handguns, 20 long rifles, 15 pipe bombs, and 15 hand grenades in various locations around the home. Now, the preliminary investigation was unable to find any known ties to any terrorist or extremist groups, so investigators say they have no known motives yet for the stash of bomb-making material. But at 53 years old, Mr. Ringel had only one prior arrest in his life that investigators could find, a minor arrest for criminal contempt in a domestic incident when he lived in the western U.S. for a time. He's scheduled to be arraigned tomorrow.
Yeah, look, I like guns. I like explosives. I really enjoy those things. But I also know that as a cannabis consumer, anytime you put weed and guns together, it is not going to work out well for you in a court of law. Unfortunately, that's the thing that just exists right now. I have to surrender my Second Amendment rights in order to keep myself and my family safe in court. And this is advice that I would give out to anyone out there listening. If you got weed on the premises, especially if you're growing, you should not have guns, much less plastic explosives. Now, to this guy's case, this is only tangentially related to marijuana in any way whatsoever. This is really a case of a guy with probably some mental illness, probably some paranoia issues going on here with that amount of arsenal going on. And whether he's smoking pot or not, I want to make sure law enforcement's on top of this guy and making sure he's not starting some sort of arsenal or militia or going to cause problems for the people in the neighborhood. So weird story. Let's try to keep the guns and the weeds separate, shall we?
And an interesting story came out this week linked to a popular topic of study in our country, weight loss. This particular study might also help scientists understand how marijuana affects your brain. Researchers at the University of California at Irvine have engineered mice to have lower brain levels of endocannabinoid 2-AG, a chemical compound similar to tetrahydrocannabinol or THC that is produced by our bodies and are believed to help us regulate metabolism. Endocannabinoids are our own cannabis-like chemicals that their full spectrum of purposes is not entirely clear. But the mice with the marijuana-like chemical blocker ate more and moved less than their unmodified study partners without gaining any weight, even when they were fed a much higher fat diet. The mice with the blocker seemed to have a faster metabolism than the normal mice, and they burned fat calories, specifically more brown fat, the type of fat that keeps mammals warm, more efficiently and making them resistant to obesity. The mice became more hyperactive and converted energy to heat faster than the unmodified mice. And even more surprising to the researchers, the modified mice with their high-fat diet and non-existent exercise regime still showed no signs of any kind of metabolic syndromes, conditions that could be included as high blood pressure, insulin resistance, stroke, and diabetes. After seeing the promising results of this year-long study, researchers are hoping that it may lead to developing drugs that could selectively diminish your brain's levels of endocannabinoid 2-AG to possibly boost a person's capacity to burn fat calories. But he said that is years off as they keep an eye on the modified mice now and monitor them for any surprising side effects. Reminding us all once again, no magic bullet, eat less, move more seems to be the only healthy way. Now that study was published this week in the journal Cell Metabolism.
All right, really interesting. We'll talk to Dr. Mitch about this at the bottom of the hour in Cannabis Science.
And the Knesset Committee on Drug Abuse is a committee in Israel that supervises authorities on drug abuse and its consequences. They advise law enforcement, courts, and rehabilitation, and they also answer questions on prevention and treatment and public health issues that mold policy in Israel. On Tuesday, they had a meeting to address marijuana in the country. A representative from the Israeli police told the committee that medical marijuana has been making its way into the black market, and he says that he has a concern that the fields where cannabis are grown are not secure enough to prevent thefts. He says that Israel loses approximately 15 tons of medical cannabis that is stolen out of fields every year, causing a headache for the police. He said that many of the state medical marijuana fields are near shopping malls and parks. They have no security cameras, locks, and may even have low fences. He says that anyone can come into the marijuana fields and just take what they want. He says that he has warned the health ministry, who oversees growing medical cannabis, to make some appropriate security upgrades, but said they have failed to do so. The Committee on Drug Abuse chairman said that he has sat through 2 years of meetings about securing the medical marijuana fields, and the problem has still not been dealt with. Now, Dr. Yuda Barak, who sits on the committee, warned that without more government regulation, use of medical marijuana could lead to the general legalization of cannabis, but still says he would never order a medical marijuana field closed due to security issues. He said that he would only order one closed if the owner of the field was indicted for breaking the law in terms of growing medical cannabis. Now, police in Israel have been pushing for Israel to change their system to an import-only medical marijuana program. They say that importing the medical marijuana would be easier to track than medical marijuana grown locally. And it wasn't all negative news at the annual meeting to discuss the country's marijuana issues. A pain relief expert testified that Israel is the world leader in medical marijuana use and study. And the committee chairman wrapped up the meeting saying that Israel could serve as a model for other countries on how to use marijuana medically. And the health minister will make sure that the fields are better protected. The Committee on Drug Abuse will visit cannabis fields and do more research on methods of securing them.
Well, I wonder why they hadn't got around to this. It's not like Israel has any more pressing issues to deal with in the region, do they?
Hey, Russ, what do you think about a break? I went to go talk there, and my mic wasn't on.
Your voice wasn't working.
My voice wasn't working either, yeah.
I think we need a break.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Norml Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa. Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. Or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com. The Norml PAC, the political arm of Norml, makes contributions to members of Congress and select state legislators who support our policies and advance legislation towards that end. Elected officials need to see that those of us who support legalization are serious about changing policy, are about more than just getting high, and understand the importance of supporting politicians who support us. Please make a contribution today to the Norml PAC and send it to the Norml office in Washington, D.C., 1600 K Street Northwest, Suite 501, Washington, D.C., 20006. Or go to the Norml website and make a generous contribution. It is an investment in our future and will help assure we finally re-legalize the responsible use of marijuana in this country. Thank you.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we get tunes for Irie Wednesday, our celebration of that mellow vibe we find in the best of reggae, ska, calypso, and Latin music. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Norml Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, time to get Irie. We got Kyle calling us up from the Bay Area. What's up, Kyle?
Not much. How you doing today, Russ?
I'm doing fantastic. I saw my name on a blimp. Kim paged me. I got double figures in assists, rebounds, and scoring, and I didn't even have to use my Russian assault rifle. So I got to say it's a good day.
You're just rocking out left and right here.
I'm having a good day, that's for sure. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. You know, we got the beautiful California sun shining down today. Nice weather. The wind's still out there, but it's a lovely day out.
All right, fantastic. And before we go any farther, let me make an announcement that I didn't have time to get in the news segment here, and that is our early bird pricing is now available for activists for the Norml National Conference, which is in Los Angeles at the Omni Hotel, October 3rd through the 6th. There is a link available, and I'll have to copy and paste it here into the chat room, but it's at omnihotels.com. Let me put this in here. But basically, with your early bird, you get much reduced pricing on the rooms. and they sell out very quickly. Usually the hotel rooms at the national conference sell out very quickly. We'll also be in the middle of LA Live, which is this new downtown renovation project in LA. Check that out at lalive.com. And if you have any questions about the Norml National Conference, there's an email address set up now, conference@norml.org. So I know it's only March and we're talking about October, but we got to plan ahead. And for those of you that might need to save some money, this is the time to start saving. All right, Kyle, that's the all the business work there. Let's get to the Irie music. What do you got for us today?
Well, today, Russ, I've got one of my favorite jam bands to see live, and I'm actually really look forward to seeing them live again this summer. Iration, formed in 2004. They started as a local Santa Barbara garage band, rocking around, going and playing different college shows, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, Chico, stuff like that. And eventually they just got a huge following. In 2007, they released their first album, and that set them up to go tour with our good friends Pepper.
Oh, right on. Yeah, we heard Pepper last week, right?
Yes, we did.
Fantastic.
Yes, we did. We will have lots more of them coming up throughout the summer.
Cool.
So if you want to see when Iration is going to be near you, go check them out at irationmusic.com. So here is Iration with Wait and See.
All right, thanks, Kyle. It's your Irie Wednesday Daily Toker Tune. This is Iration with Wait and See.
I know we've always been a long shot. I'm down to roll those dice. I travel down a long high road, girl, just to make you happy inside. We might not make it in the end, but we'll sure enjoy that ride. At least we'll have the song to remember the way we felt that night. I'm all in to make it with me. I'll read her in it on that old marquee. Take a chance, just wait and you'll see. Ooh, wait and see. I know we've always been a long shot. I'm down to run all night. Travel through the rain and cold, girl, just so I can make it all right. We might not make it in the end, but we'll sure enjoy that ride. At least you'll have the song to remember. Remember me by. I'm all in till you make it with me. I'll read her in it on that old marquee. Take a chance, just wait and you'll see. Ooh, wait and see. I'm all in till you make it with me. I'll read her in it on that old marquee. Take a chance, just wait and you'll see. Ooh, wait and see. I'm all in till you make it with me. I'll read her in it on that old marquee. Take a chance, just wait and you'll see. Ooh, wait and see. I'm all in till you make it with me. I'll read her in it on that old marquee. Take a chance, just wait and you'll see. Ooh, wait and see. I'm all in till you make it with me. I'll read her in it on that old marquee. Take a chance, just wait and you'll see. Ooh, wait and see. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hey, tokers and tokettes, this is Radical Russ from Norml Show Live. We're proud to be the voice of the marijuana nation and proud to have you on our team. Now, you can represent NSL in your own Norml Show Live gear from handmadeapparel.biz. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel is one of us and a huge supporter of our show. He's designed the classic blockhead line of NSL shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Worn by Radical Russ, Cannabis Carry, and Ganja John on the show and at live events, the designs feature their iconic logos and the "It's got to be 420 somewhere in the world" tagline. Proceeds directly benefit Norml Show Live and HandmadeApparel.biz, one of our community's strongest supporters. You can also get your Cannabis Cure UK, Ganja John Show, Irie Island Hour, and more gear from the Norml Network at HandmadeApparel.biz. Visit HandmadeApparel.biz today.
Yar! There be pirates here. Yo ho ho ho! And a ton of good smoke. Har har!
Which of you are ready to admit to having used marijuana in the past? And they want us to go around and ask each of you. Senator Kerry, yes or no? Yes. Okay. Senator Edwards?
Yes.
Senator Lieberman?
Well, I have a reputation for giving unpopular answers at Democratic debates. I never use marijuana. Sorry.
I think you'd probably be a lot cooler if you had, Senator.
Smoke a little pot, drink a little wine. Everything will be just fine. Smoke a little pot, drink a little wine. Everything will be just fine.
Catch Norml News with Cannabis Carry every weekday on Norml Show Live at 7 p.m. Eastern, here on the Norml Network. It's time for Norml Show Live's Cannabis Science with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Dr. Earlywine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York in Albany and the author of Understanding Marijuana. Now here's your dose of cannabis science.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Time for some cannabis science. The phone lines are open here live at 971-533-7111. Or you can get your questions in by chat. Carrie will pick them up for us. Or you can personal message them to me here at Radical Russ. And Dr. Mitch, how you doing today?
I just wanted to say Happy Purim to everybody.
Happy Purim. All right. And we've also got some news. You know, we always start at the beginning of this segment with the latest cannabis studies and the science. And Carrie actually brought one to us today in the news about these researchers who are blocking the 2-AG endocannabinoid to try to get mice to lose weight. What can you tell us about that, and is it a good idea?
I'm sorry to see us head down this road yet again. I believe JJ had emailed me this earlier as well. We saw this with a previous drug that essentially tried to block the CB1 receptor, and I am not optimistic about this as a weight loss strategy. I'm concerned that messing around the cannabinoid system in the past has basically led to depression and suicidal ideation. Sad but true, the way to lose weight is don't eat so much and exercise.
There we go. Works every time. All right. We got questions coming in from our chat room, and I got our first questions actually live right here in the studio. Wiz Khalico has a question for you.
Hey, Dr. Mitch, I have some friends of mine who hang out who don't typically partake, but, I'm often sometimes taking dabs, and I was just curious if it's possible to get a secondhand high from just normal smoke, and if so, would it be increased chances if it were, like, increased THC because of, like, the oil smoke? I'm just curious.
Odds are high that you're not really going to be able to absorb enough to really get a detectable amount of THC in the blood unless you're in quite the hot box. I mean, literally you'd have to be inhaling smoke anyway. So I think nevertheless, being around people who are in a good mood while you're in a good mood and maybe just appreciating some of the cues for the plant, that can always lead to a nice experience no matter what.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I've also wondered, too, about the technique, sharing hits when you and a partner would, kiss and then blow the hit into each other's mouth or the other person's mouth. And I always thought that probably wouldn't work too well because once you've inhaled it, your lungs have probably, taken in all that THC.
Never worked with me and Russ.
Yeah, we've tried many times.
Yeah.
But what are the chances? I'm sorry, I'm trying to scrub my mind. What are the chances of that working, this sharing hits directly from mouth to mouth?
I have a romantic memory of my parents doing that back in the 70s, but in fact, it's rather unlikely. THC is absorbed pretty quickly into the lungs, almost on contact, and so for the same reasons I say you don't need to hold your hits for a million seconds, it's relatively unlikely that getting the second hit on that series is actually going to create a lot of THC. But a number of teens will be emailing me, say, please don't tell my girlfriend.
Please don't tell my girlfriend. That could apply to a lot of things, Dr. Mitch. All right. We got another question here from the staff. Cannabis Carrie has a question.
I do have a question, and my question is also sort of has to do with oil and BHO, and that's popular now. With the growing popularity of smoking and vaporizing these butane hash oils, and the long-believed theory that smoking cannabis could lower your risk of certain types of cancers, would a generation of oil consumers lose out on those possible benefits? Now, I'm asking, is the beneficial and preemptive health benefits of cancer live in the high or the other parts of the plant that we are consuming to get high? That makes sense?
I think I follow you, and the bottom line is THC is one of those cannabinoids that has been shown to interfere with tumor growth, at least in a petri dish and in some mammals. So it probably shouldn't have that much of an impact. Nevertheless, I know the oil is a complicated thing, but clearly the cannabinoids have to be in there, so the effects should be comparable.
Nice, thank you.
All right. And folks, if you got a question, you can get it into our chat room here at live.norml.org. Carrie will pick it up and send it my way. Or you can call in here to 971-533-7111 if you're listening to us at the live hour, 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. If it's not that time, you're listening to a replay. Don't call. We're not here. All right. We have a question from Canada. Our own Brian Kerr wants to know, does cannabis have a nutritional value, as in vitamins and minerals? I mean, we know about, some of us know about the omega-3s, 6s, and 9s. I guess you could fill us in on that too. But I'm wondering, vitamin C, vitamin A, anything like that. What can you tell us about the nutritional value of cannabis?
Well, so it depends on whether you want to go hemp seed or the actual plant. It turns out hemp seeds are quite nutritious. As you mentioned, they do have some omega fatty acids that are really essential to the diet and actually protective for cardiovascular disease and a number of inflammatory problems. The plant itself, it's just not the same. So sitting down to a leaf, you're really not gonna get that same kind of thing. There are some micronutrients like in any good green leafy vegetable, but again, not a high enough dosage to make it something you'd want to be juicing.
So a bowl of cannabis leaves is more likely to be nutritious than, say, your average Taco Bell meal.
I would have to say yes, particularly from a micronutrient strategy.
Yeah.
And it's more likely to induce you to eat a taco meal. So
there we go. The circle of life is complete, Kaliko. How do you? Is everything good?
I think that works just fine for me.
All right. And then we have, along that line, you talked about juicing. Syntax Error has a question here that says, I just saw a video about juicing raw cannabis leaves for a high dose of non-psychoactive THC, which, any truth and medical value to that?
As it turns out, it will not be non-psychoactive.
Right.
But you can definitely get it. But in truth, the decarboxylation process, which we've discussed before, but basically exposing the plant to some heat after curing, is a markedly more efficient way to get at cannabinoids than just juicing the raw leaves.
All right. And another question that I have for you, Dr. Mitch, interesting. We take things out of the scientific and into the personal. What was your first experience with cannabis like?
It's intriguing because, like a lot of folks, I didn't know how to inhale, and I was doing it to impress a woman. So basically coughed my head off and experienced nothing.
And didn't impress the woman?
Not as much as I wanted to, I'll tell you that.
Okay. As we're talking about the issues here in cannabis reform, at least in this state, one of the big issues going on right now has to do with drug testing and testing for nanograms per milliliter of THC in the blood. And we have a lot of conjecture going back and forth about who would or would not be impaired under that limit. What does the science tell us about most cannabis consumers and that 5 nanogram limit there?
Well, so I was dusting off one of my favorite old roadside sobriety test things for cannabis that actually came out in 2005 that was done in Australia. And I wanted to just see, we don't have a ton about the actual driving that would be new to talk about. I know Paul tends to really cover that well. But to just kind of blow the sobriety test, so to speak, the ones that you would have about walking a line and standing and turning and things like that. And the first thing I want to emphasize is these folks started at 0 before smoking as far as nanograms per milliliter of blood. So we do have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about our medical users. But in the high THC condition in this study, which was not a particularly high THC, they got to 70 nanograms per milliliter within literally a minute after smoking. But at 100 minutes after smoking, so basically an hour and a half, they're below that 5 nanogram cutoff that everybody's been discussing because it's related to the law. And it's completely possible to still pass one of these roadside sobriety tests and essentially correlated well with the ability to drive under those circumstances at that level without any problem at all. So I think the idea that someone is impaired at 5 nanograms per milliliter is probably rather unlikely. It's not an ideal way to go, but it's not particularly likely that someone who smoked 2 hours ago would bust that level, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I do want to play up the fact that we do have a standardized field sobriety test that can be applied to cannabis users, and I would love to see steps in that direction. And I do think that this law could be refined in such a way that that'll happen. But by all means, I want to read that headline that says Washington legalized cannabis.
Yeah, no doubt. And with respect to this issue, one of the things that we get from our opponents, and we saw this in the polling following Prop 19 and the attacks that Mothers Against Drunk Driving had against Prop 19, as they said, well, they're going to legalize pot, but there's no similar standard for detecting, like we do with alcohol, and that's led some proponents to, go for this per se DOID measure. But aside from that, if we were to really address the topic of is someone impaired or at the very least, can we tell that someone has recently used cannabis? Are there other scientific methods coming down the pipe here that might do that? Some sort of instant roadside testing that would be fair to cannabis consumers, but would also catch impaired drivers?
I mean, that's why I like the roadside sobriety test so much, because I feel like we have data to suggest that antihistamines can impair driving. Nobody's going to do a blood test for that.
Right.
And I do feel like the walk and turn, some of those follow the finger with your eyes, the one leg stand. These are reasonable correlates of driving ability in relatively large samples. Whether you're impaired because you're just too tired, or you suck down some NyQuil, or you happen to drink too many beers or something like that. And I would much prefer that to now we have a new swab to see if you have cannabis. Now we have one we're going to put on your fingers. Now we're going to shove this up your ass. It's just like there's clearly...
Doctor, do not give them ideas.
There's clearly a better way to get at what we want, which is impairment, not... do you have metabolites in your system?
Yeah. Okay. Well, folks, we're going to have to wind it up here with Dr. Mitch. But if you didn't get a chance to get your question answered or you're a little shy, you can send it by email to 420research@gmail.com. That's 420research@gmail.com. And looking forward, Dr. Mitch, is there any events or any talks or papers that you have coming out that we need to know about?
Right now, everything that's cool is under review, but we should have some fun things to discuss next week.
All right. Sounds good to me. Thanks, Dr. Mitch, for joining us this week and every week here on our Norml Show Live Cannabis Science. We'll talk to you again next Wednesday.
Thanks so much.
All right, folks. When we come back, we're going to have time for a little bit of Radical Rant. As you know, I'm headed to Houston, Texas tomorrow, leaving on a jet plane to debate former ONDCP staffer Kevin Sabet. Talk about that when I come back.
You're listening to Norml Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Russ Melville. Yeah, he's a scurvy dog.
What makes something funny? How does humor impact health and psychological well-being? How can you incorporate humor into everyday life? A concise, reader-friendly introduction to an important but often underappreciated topic in modern psychology, Humor 101 explains the role of comedy, jokes, and wit in the sciences and discusses why they are so important to understand. Psychology professor Dr. Mitch Earlywine draws from his personal experiences in stand-up comedy to focus on how humor can regulate emotion, reduce anxiety, and diffuse tense situations, expose pretensions, build personal relationships, and much more. He irreverently debunks the pseudoscience on the topic of humor and leaves readers not only funnier, but better informed. It's part of the Psych 101 series from Springer Publishing, Humor 101 by Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Ph.D.
Tonight, I appeared on Jeopardy, and, well, how do I say this? I lost. Not only did I lose, I lost to this guy. That's right. I lost to Cheech Marin. Cheech of Cheech and Chong fame, hot smoking star of blunt-burning films like Up in Smoke, Next Smoke, and Still Smokin'. He not only beat me, he crushed me. When I heard I was up against Cheech Marin, I admit I thought his reflexes would be slow, not to mention his synapses, perhaps, but I was so very, very wrong.
As Conan the Barbarian on What's Best in Life, to crush your enemies and to hear the lamentation of their women. Cheech.
Who is Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yes. Cheech again.
Who is Al Pacino?
Right. Cheech.
What is Pillow Talk?
Right. Cheech.
What is Never Never Land?
Yes. Cheech.
What is Camelot?
Yes. Cheech.
What is a baster?
Yes. You're the winner today. Your charity will get $50,000 and Aisha and Anderson's charity $25,000 each.
So I admit it, I lost to Cheech Marin. I tied for second with comedian Aisha Taylor, who is also a great player. And joining us now is the two-time Jeopardy champion, the man who crushed me, Cheech Marin. Cheech, congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much, Anderson.
Have people just been congratulating you? Do they pour out into the streets to congratulate you? Because people have been mocking me mercilessly since this thing was aired tonight.
It's tough when you can't hit a big league curveball, man. That's the separation point.
But I don't listen to her because my head is like a sieve. USVI normal go broke down barrier. Herb is medicine to broke down barrier. Boost the economy and broke down barrier. It's helping other states broke down barrier. Cannabis for legalized to broke down barrier. Join and speak your voice broke down barrier. We gonna change the law broke down barrier. We got to educate broke down barrier. Yeah, this is Nayora, you know, bigging up USVI normal. Working to legalize cannabis, you know, for the whole of the Virgin Islands.
USVI Norml is a non-profit organization working to legalize cannabis for the use by the industries and responsible adults. Do your part. Join USVI Norml. Register to vote. Pass the word. Voice your opinion. You can change the law. Contact us for more information at 340-244-9179. You can also visit our website at www.usvinorml.org.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant. All right, welcome back, friends, neighbors, and tokers. Glad that you're here. And today, of course, last day of shows before I take off to Houston, Texas, for what is going to be actually my first real, true, live, in-person debate against a bona fide, credentialed drug warrior. I'm really looking forward to it. The man's name is Dr. Kevin Sabet. And he was a senior advisor to the Office of National Drug Control Policy, worked directly for Gateway Gil Kurlikowski, our drug czar. So this is legit, and it's a real serious conference. The people that invited me to the conference off the side, kind of said, hey, and by the way, we're not going to promote you as Radical Russ, and could you leave the pot leaf hat at home? And hey, that's totally cool. I know when it's time to play dress up. I'm good with that. We're all good, right? So I will be going to this conference in the full suit and just the little tiny pot leaf lapel pin, and I'm looking as corporate as possible. And as I've been getting ready for this debate, I've been thinking of different ways to approach this, different strategies, different ways that I might get my point across. And I've come to the conclusion that at this point in time, it's no longer incumbent on legalizers to defend legalization. It's incumbent on prohibitionists to defend prohibition. Already, we have more people in America that think marijuana should be legalized than not. So it's up to them to defend the minority position. I thought about how I could go about expressing the futility and the damage of the drug war with, graphics of 50,000 murders in Mexico, or graphics of rising costs in prison expenditures, and us being the greatest prison nation history has ever seen, imprisoning fully 1/4 of the world's prisoners are in American prisons. I thought of all the the tales I could tell, and the tolls that have been wrought from marijuana prohibition, and all the data that I could muster to throw at it. And then I kind of stopped and thought, that's Dr. Sabet's playground, really. That's this kind of guy's playground. One of the things the drug warriors love to do is to jump into statistics and studies and this and that, and start to confuse and muddy the issue. And so I've been thinking about this, and I actually talked with Norml's deputy director, Paula Montano, on the issue, who's of all people I know and work with, maybe whose opinion I respect the utmost, who put it to me very simply. And he said, Kevin Sabet's not an idiot. He's not your typical reactionary Eric Voth, Nora Volkow type drug warrior who's going to come out and lob some idiot softballs. This isn't Paul's words, I'm paraphrasing, right? But he's not going to lob idiot softballs that you can just crush out of the park. He's not going to come at you with gateway theory, right? For example. He's very smooth. He's very well-spoken. He comes off as rational and moderate, and he loves to muddy the waters, and he loves to, divert the attention. So Paul kind of suggested keep it personal. Keep it personal, and that's what I'm going to do. The tone of my debate, my questions to Dr. Sabet, and I'm going to completely defer to him. I'm going to pander to his ego for sure. Ooh, I'm so happy to be here with you, Dr. Sabet. You are a learned person of great prestige, and my biggest accomplishment in academia was I was the mascot for the Boise State Broncos in 1985. So yes, you got me on letters. You got letters behind your name and titles in front of it, and I'm a blogger in my basement. But I have one advantage you don't have, Dr. Sabet, and that is this is real to me. This isn't just numbers. This isn't just statistics and facts and charts and hypotheses. This is me and my family and my friends' lives you're talking about. And when you wipe away all the confusion and all the obfuscation and the charts and the stats and the what ifs, what you're left with is the fact that you believe me and my friends sitting here should be in a cage because we smoke the flowers of an herb. That's really what it comes down to. You believe it is imperative for the federal government to use lethal force to try to stop people from cultivating a weed. And while you can spout platitudes about how we want to save the children, or it's bad for your health, or it could cause cancer, not a single argument you can make to uphold the prohibition of marijuana withstands the scrutiny of the legality of alcohol and tobacco. You cannot tell me what about the children and what about the stone drivers when bars don't have breathalyzer valets and tobacco is still openly sold. It just doesn't wash, and it's not washing with the majority of the American public anymore. Now, Dr. Sabet's one of these kinder, gentler drug warriors. who will say, of course we shouldn't be locking everyone up. Of course incarceration and interdiction aren't working. And that's why we're devoting all these funds to rehabilitation. Rehabilitation and drug courts. Rehabs and drug courts. So then it comes back down. Once you wipe away all the compassionate conservatism and kinder gentleness, it really comes down to, you believe me and my friends should be forced to go to re-indoctrination or re-education because we like to smoke the flowers of an herb that is non-toxic, that has never killed anyone, and is of negligible harm to the society at large. And what, Dr. Sabet, should happen to me if I should refuse this re-indoctrination and re-education camp called rehab? I will be put in a cage. So that is going to be my strategy. That's the way I am handling this. And the other side of this is that, you know, they'll often come about these arguments with how harmful marijuana is. And they'll have these weird trumped up statistics like, productivity among people that use marijuana has shown to be less. And it's a confusing bait and switch, because really what they do is they measure the income levels of people who smoke pot versus the income levels of people who don't. And guess what? When you're drug tested for the better paying jobs, guess who has lower income levels? But it's all confusion. It's all misdirection. It's all obfuscation. I'm not going to play in that field with him. I'm just going to ask, if marijuana is as harmful as you say it is, if I am sitting here smoking marijuana every day, multiple times a day, mind you, and not your grandfather's Woodstock weed. This really is not your father's Woodstock weed. This is some primo, good American cannabis. Look how scary that is, folks. Terrifying, isn't it? If I am able to consume that every day and still maintain a 14-hour-a-day, 6-day-a-week work schedule, and be able to write thousands and thousands of words a day and contribute to society and pay my taxes, you need to tell me why I, as a productive marijuana addict, need to be in a cage any more so than an alcoholic who is productive. We know the harms alcohol causes to the society at large and at the small level, at the family level, the abuse of children, the abuse of spouses, the terrible things that happen. I grew up in that. My father was an alcoholic, and yet not one time did the police come to the door to take away my daddy because he got too drunk that night. But if he'd been smoking a joint, it could be flashbang grenades, armor-clad automatic weapon toting, black-clad thugs bursting into our house, shooting our pets, and terrifying me as a child. So again, Dr. Sabet, when you come to this discussion with me, it is incumbent upon you to defend why I need to be in a cage, why I need to have my assets seized from me, why I need to be ineligible for federal student aid, while people who are thieves, arsonists, murderers, rapists, burglars, assaulters, forgers, you name it, they can all still get college aid if they've decided they made the wrong choice in life and needed to turn their lives around, but not the kid who smokes a joint. You have to explain to me why, for smoking a joint, a young mother needs to be kicked out of her home with her kids, her federally assisted housing. You need to explain why people need to be denied their unemployment benefits that they paid into when they were working. Remember, you can't get unemployment unless you had been working. They paid into those benefits, that insurance for themselves, why they should be ineligible for that, because instead of getting drunk on the weekend, they smoked a doobie. It's incumbent upon you, Dr. Sabet, and all the prohibitionists out there to turn to us, the 27 million American marijuana consumers every year in this country, and some 2 million of us who consume damn near every day, and explain why we need to spend $15 billion a year and fill our prisons to 150% capacity because you don't like which particular inebriant we enjoy. So that's the way the debate's going to go this weekend. Hope it turns out well. Check it out on Friday. I will be streaming that live if I can. If not, I will record it and bring it back for Monday. We got to call it a podcast. We'll be back for hour 2 here in just a second. For those of you listening on the recorded versions, thanks for joining us. For Wiz Khalifa, Ganja John, Brian the Red, and Cannabis Carry, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Norml Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it out one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant